What's up, everybody? Marty Martin here. This is the Geek Nick Podcast. I am your host. Okay, if you heard some weird, heavy breathing going on, that was my dog. See, my dog, my German Shepherd, Caesar. I had the microphone down on the floor. I was wondering where I put it, and he's all breathing heavily over it, like sniffing it, about to lick it and everything. Little curious dog right here. Yeah, he's sitting right next to me right now. Hopefully, he doesn't make a lot of noise while I'm talking to y'all. But yeah, that wasn't me. That was my dog. Um, okay. So what are we gonna talk about? Um, well, if you guys haven't heard, about a week ago, or maybe like yeah, about a week ago, Martin Scorsese made a statement regarding Marvel movies, and he said that Marvel movies are not real cinema, or they're not cinema. And the media try to make it sound controversial. It really isn't a controversial statement, and a lot of people were not offended by it. A lot of people weren't. It was actually more media people that tried to get people offended. I I went on like social media on a lot of fan pages, like where people would like probably make a statement about it. Like I've seen people on comments on other YouTube channels like like the Geeks and Gamers fan page, or on Nerdrotic's channel on his comments or his chat, and other like people from World Class Bullshitters. I was reading a lot of responses and reactions, and mainly most people agree with Martin Scorsese. Most people do. Now, Martin Scorsese is not saying Marvel movies are not movies. I mean, like, no. Marvel movies are not cinema. And they're not. They're just they're just not, okay? And he's not saying superhero movies. He's just saying Marvel. And when he and specifically he's talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Disney's Marvel. Because if we want to get down to it, Marvel as a whole, okay, you do have movies that are cinema, such as Spider-Man 1 and 2, and Logan. But so what does cinema mean? Because from the very start, from the very get-go, I totally 100% agree with Martin Scorsese, because that's basically what I've always been saying for years, always. I never took Marvel MCU movies as a serious cinema movies, and they're not marketed to be as serious cinematic movies. So what do people mean when they use the word cinema? What do they really mean? Well, actually, uh, former basketball player and also Marvel writer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually clarified what Martin Scorsese meant with his statement. Oh my gosh, you need to get out of here. I need you to go, okay? Please? Can you leave me be? Get rid of that goofy smile. Okay? Just go back. Go back to bed. Okay? Go to your blankie. Back to your blankie. Okay? Go. Go. Psh, psh. Go over there. Get up. No. Get on my face. Hey. Go over there. Get, get over there. Get over there, dang it. There you go. No. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, sorry about that. I was not planning on my dog being here with me. Okay. Um, yeah, so he was clarifying what Martin Scorsese was saying. And really, I understood the context what Martin Scorsese was saying from the very start, because that's the word that movie connoisseurs or people that uh, are into the fine arts, this is the word that we'll use to use a more cinema is a more fancier word than movie. And when we think of the word cinema, we think about old movies. That's what we mean. Like old classic movies. So you're not gonna put Iron Man at the same level as Citizen Kane. You're just not. You're not going to do that. And you're not going to put the Avengers, Age of Ultron, at the level of, what's another one? Apocalypse Now. No, it just doesn't work that way. So, this is what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said. And this pretty much actually is kind of ending the discussion. A lot of comic book people, well, fans of like the superhero genre and Marvel movies, they were kind of like done with the topic because they understood what Martin Scorsese was saying, and it wasn't offensive, not at all. So the media just wanted to start something up in the Marvel fan community. All right. So this is what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says. So it says the latest figure to weigh in on Martin Scorsese's comments dismissing superhero movies is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who many know for his legacy in the NBA, but has also written a number of comic books, noting that while interpreting his comments literally proves that the filmmaker is objectively wrong, but his point is culturally right. So here's the thing right here. So first of all, Martin Scorsese. First off, Martin Scorsese wasn't trashing superhero movies. It was Marvel movies, specifically Marvel. Because if he said superhero movies, because that would be ridiculous. Because literally almost like everyone amongst critics, even movie directors, and just the audience, just and common people in general, The Dark Knight is considered a masterpiece. Even Tim Burton's Batman movies are considered masterpieces. Cinema. Spider-Man 2. Logan. We acknowledge that. The Superman, the original Superman movie, Christopher Reeves. There's just no denying that. DC actually has more masterpiece movies than Marvel does. I mean, they just do. And majority of those masterpiece movies are Batman films. And then, of course, most recently, Joker. And if Martin Scorsese was really against comic book movies slash superhero movies, then why would he want to be the producer of Joker? Why? That just doesn't make any sense. And again, the media is just twisting words. They're just taking things like out of context and everything. So one thing that I do disagree with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar here is when he was saying Martin Scorsese is objectively wrong. No, again, you have to understand what Martin Scorsese is really saying here. What he means by cinema, and I use this word too, okay, because I speak, some of the people, like, this is, for those of you that don't know, the reason why the name, how I got my nickname Marty, is because I got it, some of my friends that know that I'm a Martin Scorsese fan, they always say, because like, oh, Marty, he's like a little mini movie encyclopedia. He's like a film geek. He's into old movies. He talks about movies with such a passion, and when he talks about movies, he talks so fast and so rapid and everything, just like Martin Scorsese. And Martin Scorsese, he's known by many people in the industry as Marty Scorsese. So a lot of my friends, because not only is my last name Martin, but because I'm a big fan of Martin Scorsese and people call Martin Marty, that's how I got my nickname, Marty Martin. So the way I talk literally sound like, if you were to meet me in person, the way I talk about movies, especially old classic cinema, especially Italian films, I sound just like Martin Scorsese, like straight up. Yeah, like if we have a serious sit down conversation, like zero debate, like nothing, like you just hear me have a discussion about movies to explain how passionate I am about it, how much I love movies. I sound like Martin Scorsese from like his documentaries My Voyage to Italy, or when he commentated on American cinema. So the way Martin Scorsese talks, like pretty much the way I talk about movies, I get it from Martin Scorsese because I watched his interviews a lot, uh, like for a long time, and whenever there's a Martin Scorsese interview, I always watch it. and if there's anything written by Martin Scorsese, I read it. And every Martin Scorsese movie that I have watched, which is almost all of his movies, I've always listened to his commentaries. So when you listen to somebody talk so much, and especially from a person that you totally understand and get and have a lot in common with, you kind of adopt that person's behavior or like the way that person talks, unintentionally. So, so in a way, the way I talk is kind of like the way he talks, and I understand the context of what he says because again, regarding this topic about, like there isn't a word to distinguish what is considered high art versus entertainment. Cinema is just a fancy word for the proper upper class or call it pretentious if you want, for the upper class um, form of artwork, you know. So that's really what Martin Scorsese is saying. He's not saying that they're not movies, period, or they shouldn't be accepted uh, as movies. He's just saying that it's not high art. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar actually clarifies that here. And I couldn't. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he actually brought up that term. So now that's actually an appropriate term because I was talking to some friends and even my brother as well. There really isn't a word to describe the way we feel about entertainment movies versus like movies like, again, like Birdman, Drive, Midnight in Paris, The Artist. Uh, what else? Born on the 4th of July. What's the difference between those movies versus a Captain America movie? And a Hulk movie. So, what category do we put them in? Because at the end of the day, they're both movies. So, really, because of what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said, now we should drop the word cinema and use high art. Because that was another thing that I found like in a lot of these group discussions, fan pages of YouTubers channels, and you see the dialogue that they're having, the conversations that they're having, and they almost everybody agreed with Martin Scorsese, or if they didn't agree with it, they respected his opinion because it's Martin Scorsese. We know where he's coming from. We understand it. He has a point, and it's not mad. I don't think Martin Scorsese was even. Um, I don't even think Martin Scorsese is mad about superhero movies. I think what bothers him, and it bothers me too. This does bother me, is when people throw around saying like, I mean, at the end of the day, art is subjective. But what happens is when we make everything too subjective, we put everything into like one bunched up like category. Okay, there it involves aesthetics, structure, story arc, performance, production, like how was it all put together and everything, originality, it's a combination of things. So, like, I mean, again, it's like saying, I mean, it's all based on opinion, but like, let's take like the worst movie from the MCU. Let's take like Thor 2, Dark World, okay? Thor 2, if you put it at the same level as um, The Godfather, La Dolce Vita, um, uh, Terms of Endearment, like those types of movies, or Brute Force. If you're gonna say that Thor 2 is above those movies, or is at the same level as them, let me tell you something. Majority will disagree. The majority will disagree. Now, does it mean that the majority is right, or does it mean that you're wrong? Not really. No, but it just isn't. Thor 2 is a popcorn movie. It's a popcorn movie. It comes and it goes. That's what it is. Okay, most of these superhero movies, most of the entertainment movies, they're they're made for you to go have a good time and then go home. That's it. That's really what it is. So, let's get to what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says, um, in a new opinion piece for the Hollywood Reporter, Abdul-Jabbar admits how big of a fan he is of superhero movies and what they represent, but that the director of Raging Bull and Taxi Driver is merely citing the distinction between high art and the filmmaking on display in massive blockbusters. So Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said, Scorsese wasn't denigrating Marvel films so much as making a distinction between high art, an accurate but cringeworthy term, that we might see in a museum or featured on NPR, and regular everyday art that we might see on our t-shirts and tattoos, the writer notes. Scorsese is stating the obvious. Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee is not on the same level as Coolidge's Dogs Playing Poker, no matter how much those dogs make us smile. Nor will Peter Benchley's novel Jaws ever match the magnificence of Herman Melville's Moby Dick, despite selling millions more copies. Captain America will never be James Baldwin. During a chat with Empire magazine to discuss his new film, The Irishman, Scorsese was asked his opinion on comic book movies, noting that he had previously attempted to become invested in them, but couldn't emotionally connect with them. I don't see them. I tried, but that's not cinema, Scorsese admitted. Honestly, the closest I can think of them, as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks. It isn't the cinema of human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experiences to another human being. Abdul-Jabbar was able to interpret these comments on good faith, pointing out that claiming Marvel movies are not cinema would be like saying 50 Shades of Grey is not literature, with both remarks being objectively wrong, rather serving as a distinction of their impact on our culture. The writer points out one major difference between the two storytelling efforts being that high art, like cinema, focuses more on how a character changes over the course of a journey, whereas superhero movies emphasize offering an engaging and fulfilling narrative, regardless of how compelling and complex those characters might be. Marvel films have made me laugh, cry, jump, agonize, and almost always leave the theater feeling lighter and more satisfied than when I went in, Abdul-Jabbar notes. And that's not nothing, but it's also not everything. With Marvel melodrama, we feel better. With high art, we are wiser. So that's what Martin Scorsese was really saying. That's really what he was saying. When he means cinema, he means high art. Because again, it's all about wording. Everybody was having a hard time saying, like, whoa, Martin Scorsese could have used another word. What's another word other than cinema could Martin Scorsese have used? That was a discussion. I actually saw that discussion. I was part of it. I mean, it was in multiple conversations, multiple comment sections, and everything. People were asking that question: is cinema the real word to use? Because let's look at the definition of cinema. Alright, so cinema, also known as movie theater. A movie theater, cinema, or cinema hall, also known as a picture house, the pictures or the movies, is a building that contains auditorium for viewing films for entertainment. Most but not all theaters are commercial operations catering to the general public who attend by purchasing a ticket. So let's look at the actual definition. Definition is a theater where movies are shown for public entertainment, a movie theater, and then, similar to, the production of movies as an art or industry. Okay? Production of movies as an art or industry. So it's also saying that it is a process, too. So the word is not really, that's not really the right word to use. It's really not. But we understand, and most people did understand what Martin Scorsese was really saying, because you also have to look at it like this, okay? The way he talks is different than the way we talk. This guy is in his 70s. He's been making movies since the 60s. So the way he talks, he speaks the language of an established film director or someone who works in the fine arts, making high esteemed movies, critically acclaimed films. He comes from a very um, upscale view. So, of course, things are going to be like, I mean, let's face it, okay? Even if it's true or not, I will say this. Superhero movies are looked down upon in the film industry regarding with, like, let's say the Academy Awards, the Golden Globes. Usually, not just the older generation, because it's not just older people, it's the upper class, because you have classes in the movie industry, and you have people. It's like music too. So, like, for example, I pretty much hate 90% of all contemporary music. I pretty much hate everything. But I'm not closed-minded. I'm just saying most of the stuff that I listen to, I don't like. Like, I hate 90% of today's hip hop. It's just not my thing. I just don't like it. I think it's trash. I think it's whack. I think it's like ew, and I don't think it's innovative. I don't think it's like original. I don't think it's impressive. But hey, that's my opinion. That's how I see it. I see most of these rappers. I'm like, yeah, but these guys ain't no Tribe Called Quest. These guys aren't Beastie Boys. These guys aren't um, Tupac. They're not Rakim. KRS-One. Tresh. They're not any of these people. And it's not because they're the artists that I'm mentioning are from a different generation, but they have more skill. They just do. Or maybe it's because, there it was more sophisticated. They come from a more sophisticated style because old school hip hop, back in the day, there was a lot of jazz fusion going on in the music, like with Tribe Called Quest music, Wu-Tang Clan, or even in some of Nas' songs too. You know, there were a lot of jazz elements back then, or especially in Outkast songs by Outkast. I'm a fan of that. I don't like the poppy stuff. Like I don't like Migos. I think their music is annoying. It's just like like some people they enjoy Migos. I know a lot of people they like Migos like Migos. uh, to me, it's just like someone scratching a chalkboard and it's just ringing in my ears. I'm just like, turn it off, shut it off. Lil Yachty, Lil Nas, like the whole that song, Old Town Road. What's that one with Lil Nas and Billy Ray Cyrus? I cannot stand that song. I cannot. This song is no, it's not my thing. I like Lord. I love Frank Ocean. I love Arctic Monkeys, the 1975. Um, I like. I only like two albums by Kendrick Lamar. Overall, I'm not a Kendrick Lamar fan. But I love To Pimp a Butterfly and Untitled Unmastered. I think those are masterpieces right there. I can't stand Drake. I used to like old Drake, but I don't like any of Drake's music anymore. I just do not like it. Period. I would say today's rap music as a whole, like I don't like Travis Scott. I don't like Travis Scott. I only like one song, it's Sicko Mode, but I only like it for Drake's verse. That's it. But I'm not the only one that feels that way. Call me an old soul. That's why a lot of times I feel old, like when it comes to like the new music or the new stuff. Like I'm not a big superhero movie fan. I'm not. I like comic book movies, and what I mean by that is like Joker. I love Joker. I like um I like Sin City, a Dame to Kill For. Sin City, the first one, it was okay. It was okay, but I loved Watchmen. I think Watchmen is one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. Like one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. I really love Watchmen. Um, yeah, Joker, Watchmen, Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, or even I watched. I saw some episodes of Doom Patrol. That's pretty cool. I like Doom Patrol. Uh, so yeah, most of the stuff I like is DC because DC does do a lot of more has a more serious approach to superhero movies, which I'm actually going to do a video series about comparing DC movies versus Marvel movies and why DC, based on their whole roster, their history, they have produced better movies than the MCU has. So I would like stay tuned for that. I'm going to do a video series on that. It's going to be a 3-part series. So, yeah, so like with Martin Scorsese, I knew from the get-go, and most people did get what Martin was saying. And we respect that because even if you don't even have to like Martin Scorsese's movies, and I saw a lot of people say this, they're saying, I saw a lot of comments that say, you know what, I'm not a big fan of Martin Scorsese's movies, but I respect his opinion because he is a veteran in in filmmaking, and he has made a huge contribution that most movies today have copied his work. Movies today have either been influenced by Martin Scorsese's work or have copied his work. And not only if they didn't get it from Martin Scorsese, they probably copied another person's film who copied Martin Scorsese's work. So I believe that Martin Scorsese is possibly the most influential film director from the past 50 years, along with Spielberg. So you may not have been influenced by Scorsese directly from him as a filmmaker or as a storyteller, but everybody's been influenced by Scorsese in some way or another, if not through his work, but through someone else's work. So I can tell you one thing, somebody's going to, in the next 20 years, someone is going to say, I decided to become a film director because I saw Todd Phillips's movie Joker. That movie inspired me to want to make movies, like the way he did. Well, Joker is kind of basically a Martin Scorsese movie because it's based on Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. You're kind of also influenced by Martin Scorsese because Todd Phillips was inspired by Martin Scorsese to make Joker. So the movie that you were inspired by was actually inspired by Martin Scorsese. So you were indirectly inspired by also Martin Scorsese as well. Even if you hadn't watched his movie, you saw some of the contributions that he had made. So you kind of have to respect his view because in a way, yes, people say again, you hear people say, well, who's he to say that, to make this statement and everything, blah, 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 blah. Who is he to say, make a statement like this about art? Well, it's because, it's kind of for example, let's say if Michael Jackson were still alive. Let's say if Michael Jackson made a statement about, let's say, today's music with, let's say if he was talking about Lil Yachty, Lil Xan, and Tekashi 6ix9ine's music, if Michael Jackson made a statement saying, that's not true hip-hop, or that's not true, real innovating, music production or whatever, people are not, I guarantee you, people would not be immediately trash Michael Jackson's comments. People will probably listen to him, they'll say, I respectfully disagree, or they will probably, maybe agree with him. Because this is Michael Jackson we're talking here. The GOAT, the greatest of the greats. The godfather of this man. He's almost every artist today, especially in this time period here in the 21st century, they owe a lot to Michael Jackson's contribution, because Michael Jackson touched everything. So everything that you're into today, probably every artist that you listen to, if you're a Lil Yachty or something, the music artists that they listen to and look up to, those artists listened and looked up to Michael Jackson. I mean, for example, probably the most influential rapper of this century is Kanye West. And Kanye West, he's heavily influenced by Michael Jackson. He's a diehard Michael Jackson fan. He met Michael Jackson. He got to actually work with Michael Jackson on the Thriller 25 uh, uh, album anniversary. So people that love Kanye West, they grew up listening to his music. They study his music. Like people like Chance the Rapper, um, uh, or Lil Pump, or whatever. You're looking up to an artist that took a lot from Michael Jackson to incorporate it into his own style. So some of the styles that you're actually taking from Kanye West, you're taking a little bit of Michael Jackson as well. So in a way, especially if like with Michael Jackson, like he's definitely a type of guy, will rest in peace, but if he were alive, he would definitely know what he's talking about. He would know. Because especially we also have to respect our elders too. We kind of also have to take that into consideration because they've walked this earth longer than we have. They have actually, these were the titans. These were like the demigods that, like, they're looking at us and they're like, man, all the things that you're into, I made that. I did that. All right, that's how like probably some of these artists are. Like they're like you remember this movie Get On Up? If you guys have seen it, the James Brown movie, I love it. Like, let me go to this clip right here. All right, so this is the clip right here from Get On Up, and everything that James Brown says right here is proves the point that what I am saying regarding Martin Scorsese or like Michael Jackson. Why their opinions do kind of matter. They kind of do. Just like how Quincy Jones's opinions regarding like today's music kind of matters too, because this guy was one of the creators of the music of today. Like these guys, they're like, look, motherfucker, I made this shit. you know, that's how funny some of these guys are. So like, listen to what Chadwick Boseman, playing as James Brown, said right here in this clip.
Y'all cats might not own my records, but you can bet your bottom dollar every record you got a piece of me in it. Ain't nobody out here today rapping, singing, whatever they doing ain't been touched by James Brown. So
that's very true. That is very, very true. So I've seen more love for Martin Scorsese than I have seen like negative responses. I've seen like a good amount, a decent amount of people like having a negative outlook on what Martin Scorsese said. But I think most people, I don't think, but most people knew where he was coming from and knew what he was saying. And yeah, it's like a theme park, These movies are made for fun. You go in, you get out, okay? Have a few laughs. Buy some popcorn, get some candy, a Coke, just to pass the time. And some people they feel bothered by that. I don't understand why. That's really what Martin Scorsese is saying. It's just entertainment. And then some people are saying, well, one day these Marvel movies are going to be considered masterpieces and everything. Well, I mean, I highly doubt that. I really do. I'll tell you one thing. The only one that I could say that is going to have like, because it's all about longevity. And I would say probably out of all like the MCU movies from Iron Man to Endgame, I think Infinity War is probably going to have the longest run when it comes to like acclaim and probably influence. I think that's the one that people are probably going to look to the most because in my opinion, I think that's the best one out of the MCU series. Excuse me. But yeah, I'd say that maybe Iron Man 3, but the thing is like, see, because Marvel has so many movies that some of them are forgotten too. Like some people have a hard time like naming all the MCU movies. Like they have to sit down and think about it. Like, oh man, what? Okay, what's there? It's Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Thor Ragnarok, Captain America, and uh, uh, Captain America Civil War, and then the Avengers Age of Ultron. And Winter Soldier, and then blah, blah, blah. And Ant-Man too. So you got to get a lot of people probably missing a few movies out, because again, there are just some movies that are pretty forgettable. Like some of those movies are filler too. Like I am sorry, Ant-Man was filler. Okay, I don't know any diehard Ant-Man fans. I don't. The only person that I hear people talking about the most from the Ant-Man movies is Michael Peña's character. That's it, okay? I've never heard people say like, oh man, I can't wait till the next Ant-Man movie. You guys ready for the new Ant-Man movie? Nah. They just have to do a movie about Ant-Man because he's part of the Avengers, so they're like, we gotta give him a movie or whatever. Well, why do you think there isn't much high demand for a Hulk movie? Because Hulk, not everybody's like a big Hulk fan. And also remember, the Incredible Hulk is part of the MCU, if I'm not mistaken. So like that movie's not even really brought up. That movie's not brought up. So you're gonna have the good ones, you're gonna have the bad ones too. And I just think MCU has made more forgettable movies than DC has. DC, they make memorable ones, even if they're bad. Even if it's a bad movie, it's memorable, and we don't want it to be memorable. That's the thing. Like Batman and Robin is like it's so bad, but the reason why it's so bad is because you can't forget about it. Once you've seen Batman and Robin, you can't let it go. It's scarring. It's traumatizing how bad it is. It is like that movie never happened. It never happened. I don't know what you're talking about. It never happened. Never happened. But it happened. Just like Jared Leto's Joker. His Joker performance isn't bad because it's forgettable, but it's so bad that it's not forgettable. That's how bad it is. So it's like you have two types of, badness. There's the bad that it's unforgettable, and then there's the bad that it's so bad that you don't want it, like you can't let it go. And you hate it. That's how you hate it even more, because it's that bad of a movie. You're like, I want to forget about it. I wish I didn't see it. I wish that never happened. But yeah, DC has provided more movies that have made impacts, because it also has to do with impacts too. Okay, there isn't a Marvel movie that has made a huge impact like of the MCU. The franchise is a big impact, not a movie. There is not one movie you can tell me that has been heavily influential. But you look at DC, like from the past 20 years, what movie has made the biggest impact? Not just in the superhero genre, but in cinema, in movies in general, and pop culture. The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight. One movie like that, it just snaps. You tell people, what's the greatest superhero movie ever made? Oh, majority of them are going to say, oh, Dark Knight. Dark Knight. Dark Knight is the greatest. Like, no contest. And who did that? DC did. Oh, if it's not the Dark Knight, they're going to say, oh, Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is the greatest. Spider-Man 1. Greatest. Oh, Logan. Now that's another movie. That movie will... That is going to be... That will go down in history. Like, give it... I mean, it's already seen as a modern classic, but like that, I would say... I would put up there as the top 10 greatest superhero movies ever made. Like, top 10. Like, for sure. But, Logan's, the first two Spider-Man movies, that's not MCU. That's Columbia, and that's Fox, 20th Century Fox. And Sony, too. So, MCU hasn't provided an iconic movie or an impactful film. Okay, it just hasn't. There isn't one, at least yet. You're probably gonna have to wait like 10 years, and then finally we can have that discussion and say, okay, which one has made the biggest impact? And again, we got to look at longevity here. So I think Infinity War is gonna be the biggest one. Endgame, it doesn't mean much if you haven't seen the whole franchise. That's the problem. If you haven't seen like a good number of the Marvel movies and you watch Endgame, it's not as impactful. It's not. Because in order to appreciate Endgame, really, you have to have watched like all the other Marvel movies, okay? With Lord of the Rings, you could appreciate The Return of the King without watching the first two, without watching Fellowship of the Ring or The Two Towers. You can still appreciate it. Same thing with Star Wars, with the original trilogy. You could watch Empire Strikes Back. You may not get it as much, but it's still a great and impactful story. Avengers Endgame, you would have to have watched like all 20-something movies to get it. And if not all 20 of them, you probably have to have watched like 15 of them. So, Endgame, I don't think that would work. But Avengers Infinity War, like that's a movie that you don't need to have watched all the other Marvel movies. You can just watch it in and of itself, and just the story alone is good. Endgame was just the firework, the grand finale of putting everything together, getting everybody in one movie. That's really what it is. It was putting all the superheroes in one movie and having an epic showdown, an epic fight, and end a generation. That's really what it is. But yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did an excellent clarification of Martin Scorsese's comments, and most people, they understood what Martin Scorsese was saying. So, I respect, I mean, it's not because I agree with Martin Scorsese, but I respect his view because, again, this man has done a lot. Not just for filmmaking, but in American culture, too. He's an American icon. So, I kind of have to, just like how, like, Quincy Jones probably will say things about, stuff about today's music, but, this man shaped what music is today. So it's like, you gotta respect them. You gotta respect them. So that, I've seen more respect of, people saying Martin Scorsese, regarding Martin Scorsese's comment, than I have seen negative. And in fact, I think the one person who I can tell he probably disagrees maybe, but I think the one person that actually showed the most respect about his comment was Robert Downey Jr. when he was on the Howard Stern show.
Your Iron Man portrayal has become the thing. It is a huge moneymaker.
Yeah.
You still enjoy doing it, yes?
I'll tell you the truth. I didn't expect it to become what it became. Mm-hmm. And it is this very large, multi-headed hydra at this point. And I've always had other interests. And according to Scorsese, it's not cinema. I got to take a look at that,
Why did he say that?
Because it's his opinion.
But it is cinema, isn't it?
I mean, it plays in theaters.
Yeah, well, what did he mean by that it's not cinema?
I appreciate his opinion because I think it's like anything. We need all of the different perspectives so we can come to center and move on. You're therapy.
No, come on.
You're therapized.
No, you're being too nice.
Magnanimous, it's called.
No, really, were you insulted when he said that it's not cinema, that somehow Iron Man isn't cinema? It is cinema to me.
Well, I mean, look, it'd be like saying Howard Stern isn't radio. It is. It makes no sense.
But what was he
trying?
trying? Was he jealous of the success?
Of course not. But I mean, he's Martin Scorsese.
So what does he mean by it?
I think in his view, and by the way, there's a lot to be said for how these genre movies, and I was happy to be part of the problem if there is one.
Right.
Were denigrated the art form of cinema. Appreciate his point of view. Robin, what do you think?
Well, he's commenting on it.
Yeah, and why not?
I don't know. It's kind of a knock. I mean, the fact is, were you ever nominated for Academy Award for Iron Man?
No.
Don't you think that's, and be serious.
Yeah.
Because it's a superhero movie, they turn their nose at the performance is excellent.
Well,
it is a totally believable character.
Well, I'm so glad you brought this up because there was some talk about it, and I said, let's not. And because I'm much more like you than you might really want to believe, I listen to the show. I agree with most all of your opinions, varied though they may be. Occasionally, you'll go on some tributary trail of thought that I go like, oh, that's not how I see it. But I go, but I love that you see it that way.
And that was probably one of the most common reactions I was getting just from the public. You know, they were like, okay, it's Martin Scorsese. I guarantee you, it would have been way more negative if it was someone like a Tom Cruise or like a, what's his name, Paul Thomas Anderson or something. You know, these guys are not have that caliber level that Martin Scorsese has. You know, and they don't have that long experience of creativity like Martin Scorsese has. You know, I mean, Tom Cruise is an actor and everything, but let's look at Paul Thomas Anderson. Okay, Paul Thomas Anderson is a product of Martin Scorsese. Okay, that's the thing. A lot of these artists today, we come from Martin Scorsese regarding filmmaking when it comes to styles, influence, and stuff like that. You know, so we probably take a lot from him. All right, and Marty took a lot from Stanley Kubrick, John Ford, or Roberto Rossellini, Federico Fellini, Akira Kurosawa, Ingmar Bergman, Jean-Luc Godard, Francois Truffaut. You know, all those guys. So, you know, he took a lot of those. But Martin Scorsese made his own unique style. One unique style. You know a Martin Scorsese movie when you see it, and Todd Phillips did such a good job studying Scorsese's work with Joker that if you told me that this is a Martin Scorsese movie, I would have believed it. And again, Martin Scorsese was originally going to be part of the project. So, obviously, you know, Martin Scorsese is not against comic book stories. And most of these, like a lot of these older directors, they're not like Steven Spielberg. He's doing a Marvel movie. He's working on a Marvel movie. So, like, you know, one person said like, oh, Steven Spielberg hates superhero movies too. No, he's directing one. Steven Spielberg is doing a Marvel movie. Like, what is it? It's Black something. I think it is. Let me see. Steven Spielberg, Marvel movie. Or is it DC? Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Steven Spielberg. Okay, really, let's see. Okay. Okay, so it's actually a DC movie. Okay. But it's still a superhero movie. Okay. So the movie is Black Hawk. Now, I've never heard of this superhero. Ever. I know Darkhawk. I have a comic book of Darkhawk for Marvel. I think that's why I got it confused. I thought it was originally Darkhawk, so I was like, oh, Darkhawk, so Marvel, but it's Blackhawk from DC. But Steven Spielberg is doing a Blackhawk movie, so the person stating that Steven Spielberg hates comic book films or superhero movies, they saw it as a negative. And here's another thing. So Steven Spielberg, so I understand the comment that person was referring to, and it was this comment that Steven Spielberg said, and it says right here in the Hollywood Reporter, it's this one. It says, Steven Spielberg says superhero movies will go the way of the Western. So in that comment, so he was saying that superhero movies are going to die off. They're going to die off. And he said it's probably going to be soon, too. people were getting mad about this and all upset, saying like, "Oh, you see, he hates movies and everything." No, genres die off. Okay, when was the last time you seen a Western movie? Like a big Western movie that was like promoted in theaters. That was a huge blockbuster hit. That was at the same like box office level of an Avengers movie or a DC movie or a Star Wars movie. Name one. Yeah, that's what I thought. No. Westerns died out. Nobody likes Westerns anymore. Westerns died off. Okay? Westerns died off like after Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman, which came out in the 90s. That was like it. And even during that time, Westerns died off like in the 70s. It had like a brief resurrection, but really it died off in the 70s. Western was the predominant genre in classic cinema from like the 1920s all the way to the 70s, or like early 70s. So they died off. For the longest time, vampires were the big thing in not just in movies but pop culture. Nobody was into vampires anymore. Zombies, they were actually dying out, but then they kind of came back. But then they're gonna die out soon. The whole zombie craze. It's not as intense as it used to be, so it's like fading away. Less and less people are watching The Walking Dead. Why? Because they're getting tired of zombies. They're getting tired of it. You know. The only thing like that involves zombies that people are still liking is Call of Duty. But yeah, it's dying out. Romantic comedies were like when they were good, that was big. Comedies used to dominate the box office, you know? And what we mean by comedies, we're not talking about like again, like so a lot of these superhero movies, like with Aquaman, Shazam, these movies, they had comedy in it. They have humor. It's like action comedies. But we're talking about just straight comedies like a Woody Allen movie, like Annie Hall, or a Nora Ephron film, When Harry Met Sally, You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle. These movies. Those movies are not made anymore for like the huge, like for the big masses. Because especially now times have changed, demographics have changed, people's attention spans have changed, people's maturity levels have changed, and now we have to market to China more. And because romantic comedies, they involved a lot of dialogue, and in China, most people don't speak English, they speak their native language, so they don't want to be watching a movie that's nothing but subtitles in it. They want the movie to be very active visually. So that's why blockbuster movies do very well in China and other countries, because the dialogue doesn't matter as long as it's fun, it's explosive, and you have cool scenes in it. The dialogue doesn't matter. It's a part of it, but it doesn't matter. That's another thing about a lot of these superhero movies or the MCU movies. It's not about the dialogue per se, because most people, when they go see these movies, they really don't care about it. They just want to have fun. Is it a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. But I think what frustrated Martin Scorsese is when people attempt to put these movies at the same caliber, at the same level as a movie like Citizen Kane, or It's a Wonderful Life, or The Wizard. That's what he was talking about. So that's the thing. When most people talk about superhero movies, they're mainly talking about Marvel, because Marvel is the big titan, the biggest competition, the MCU. The DC, nobody's really got to knock DC, specifically Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, and even Tim Burton's Batman films and the original Superman movie. So, and of course the new Joker film. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on it. I am going to do a 3-part series about DC versus Marvel regarding cinema and video games, and I will give a comparison of the two and why I personally believe that DC is way better and will always be superior to Marvel when it comes to filmmaking and storytelling as well. Alright, everybody, that's it for this episode. Live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.